Everyone, this is Sean from Sean's Model Build, and this is model number 12, episode 1, the infamous 537 scale Enterprise A. Now, this is the 2017 edition, which was still missing a bottom hatch, still didn't have a good connection between the neck and lower saucer, but that didn't stop me from assembling it anyway, because I had some ideas on how to reinforce things, and I carried out those ideas on this build. Hopefully it'll help others. Now, of course, you see how I laid out the parts. I've already got the parts that go on the front of the nacelles, so everything was there except the top housings above the impulse engines on the shuttle. Fortunately, I had my shuttle from my 1993 edition, and I had HDA Model Works decals that I painted with Martha Stewart pearlescent paints. Otherwise, they'd never show up on the hull. You can see the very light gray color they are ordinarily. And in this shot, you can see how the pearlescent lights up. Now, this is a trick I learned with my 1000 scale 24th century refit way back then. And you see these for the normal stand hole plugged in as part of the hull. So the stand only goes so far up into the hull. Of course, when I packed the hull with cardboard, as you saw in episode 3, or you will see, that kind of defeated that purpose, but I'm still working on it. I've got it in the Constructs cradle right now. So there's the entire top of the saucer and the strong backs attached, which meant you can only glue in the nacelles from on top, but my nacelles have held for over 6 years, almost 7 by now, so I think I'm doing okay. There's the 1400 scale Enterprise E in the background. And then I started assembling the nacelles, and you can see how the tabs are practically non-existent. I had to fill them in with bits of sprue tree to get them to work, because it filled in the gaps in the tabs, and gluing it actually worked. There's the neck. Now there's the secondary hull in the next picture upside down, so the nacelles will be braced. So I had to put books and CDs beside them to get it braced properly. And I test fit the bottom of the saucer. The nacelles aren't quite level as they should be, but the close-up view shows how I reinforced the neck to make sure it was vertical with the saucer and didn't move. And then I started spray painting it. So there's the light gray primer to start with. Sprayed in a protective box, of course. There's the top of the saucer, sprayed with a light gray primer as well. Doesn't make it look much darker than the white metal. That should be the pearlescent white on top, bringing it back almost to white, but not quite. There you see the bottom saucer with the same, how much more shiny it is. The detail painting on the top of the bridge. Now, I just did concentrically lighter metallic colors until I got to the very top, white light. And there's the bottom of the saucer with the sensor dish installed, because I decided not to use the Aztec decals after all. As you'll see a few pictures from now, I started painting the pattern by hand. There's the bridge dome installed. And this still has the missing fourth hatch, I believe. I had to scribe that. So there, I I guess it was just set in place, so I took it off, started painting with the pearlescent paints, and slowly worked my way out. Now this was just a proof of concept model to make sure I knew how to assemble it. You can see the red and green that are there when the light's not shining on it. So I didn't try to make it accurate. I tried to make it straight, of course. But the pearl white and the pearlescent colors really make the pattern, even though it's an inaccurate Aztec pattern, show up. So I took lots of pictures of that, and you saw in the teaser how I did a short video on the subject as well. And there's the first wedge with the pearlescent blue and the pearlescent orange showing up. Now I had put in some pearlescent yellow, which shows up as green in normal light. And there may be a couple of repeat pictures. That may be a picture you've seen before, but you see the contrast with the gray hull. That's why I did it, because I just found it so beautiful. See how it disappears towards the center. And how you can hardly see it there. I'd only done 1 or 2 wedges at that time. There's another one. Eventually ended up putting on top of the lampshade, and that's how it showed up the most. Excuse me. There's the normal colors. At that time I used too much red and green. I'm not going to make that mistake again. There's the front leading wedge. Ziz. Yep, the next time I used the iridescent colors, and I used a lighter touch on the decals. At least I tried to. And there it is from the bottom. So again, this is filmed in 2019. Oh, well, the pictures were taken in April of 2019. Still a couple years before I decided to film stuff, although I filmed brief excerpts, as you saw in the preview that I uploaded a couple days ago. And then, you see, I'd already scribed the 4th hatch. You saw how I did that in model number 45 in one of the episodes. At first I did them in gray. Yes, I did. And then I realized later on it was, oh, it's the Enterprise A. Don't do them in gray, do them in light blue. And you might see that in this episode, or it might show up in a later episode. And to protect the table and the saucer, I just put it down on this bubble wrap here and did all the painting there. And took lots of beauty shots in various light, because I didn't really think to film too much yet, but every picture I took, still the front 2 wedges. Nope, maybe it's front 3 by now. I think it is. And there you go, you're getting more of the saucer, so it's about half done at that point. You can see the beautiful pearlescent there. Now, when I build model 45, I'm not going to attach the neck to the saucer. I'm going to attach the neck to the secondary hull. Hopefully be able to get at it from underneath. Don't know how you put those 2 pieces together, though, to do that. I'll have to think of something. Although, admittedly, because it had a slot and a peg, didn't have any trouble getting the neck in and getting it to stay. I just filled it with cardboard to increase the gluing surface relative to the secondary hull, but I'm going to have to make sure when I do that, drill a hole for each layer of cardboard for the stand hole. There's the entire lower saucer, all done in the pearlescent. It's actually quite subtle, really. There it is in normal light. You can hardly see a trace of even the darker pearl, like the pink and the green. That's quite good. Still gray, of course. It might not be in this episode that it's done in light blue trim. It might be the next one. Now, part 2 has the music, but it isn't copyrighted. So that's why part 2 remains intact till later. And here you go. Here's the mock-up of the secondary hull without the neck. And as you see, the stand goes all the way through. But if it went up that much into the neck, it would risk popping the neck off. So that is part of the reason why I decided to use just a Constructs cradle for the ship. And of course I put on the registry number. Now that's before I painted the hatches blue. I think the phaser decals are either put on in decal form or they're painted, just like the RCS thrusters. Because sometimes the paint worked. Sometimes the decals worked better. Now it looks pretty busy from that angle. That's where you can really see the pink and green pearlescent colors, even though they fade out a bit there. So that's why I decided to switch to the iridescent for the motion picture refit. And I do all my color testing on the bottom saucer anyway, so hopefully by the time you get to the top saucer, my technique is refined and things will work out. And you can tell it's not quite the 24th century because I colored the port and starboard navigation lights red and green respectively. So that's the end of episode 1 of model number 12. Episode 2 will have the pictures with music. Hope you enjoyed it and see you here next time. Bye-bye.